Saturday on Denver 7.
We're still trying to outguess Mother Nature.
An already active wildfire season with more tough days expected. Why state fire officials say they're more prepared than ever. If you're looking for some eco-friendly shopping or a good bargain, ThriftCon might be the one-stop shop for you. When and where you can check it out. And this week's Denver 7 Everyday Hero is actually on 4 legs, helping heal those who need it most. Good morning and welcome to Denver 7 News. I'm Jessica Crawford.
And I'm Katie LaSalle. Thank you so much for joining us here on this Saturday morning. Let's take a look at some of the stories that will be making headlines this weekend.
That's right. So crews in Colorado Springs will continue to work on the Silver Charm fire. The good news here, as of last check, it was 75% contained this morning. The blaze was caused by welding, which is illegal on days when burn restrictions are in place. 500 homes were evacuated during the fire. 120 firefighters responded and 17 acres have burned so far.
And we have already seen so many fires this year, and that's unfortunately not necessarily going to slow down heading into summer, and that's because we're still in the midst of a drought and snowpack numbers keep dwindling. This is the latest snowpack map released on Friday. Not one of Colorado's water basins is above 100% of normal. All of southern Colorado is just around 65% of normal.
If you drive by Elitch Gardens today, you'll see the rides going. Elitch Gardens is hosting its season pass holders for a sneak peek at the park today and tomorrow. The park opens to the public next weekend. Officials say it's been a busy off season. They've been busy planting 8,000 flowers. They've also ordered 100,000 souvenir cups and 200,000 stuffed animals for those Midway games.
And it is going to be a lot cooler across the metro area this weekend. Yesterday, we saw a very warm, windy day with areas of blowing dust. This morning, we've cleared out over the Denver area under a partly cloudy sky with temperatures mild this morning. It's 50 degrees downtown and out to the airport. Winds still sustained from the west at 28 miles per hour. We picked up some snow over our higher mountains, and we'll continue to see that, especially over our northern and central high country for this Saturday. In terms of your satellite radar, you can see those rain showers moving over the far northeastern plains and snow continuing to fall for our northern Front Range mountains. Winds will continue to be strong, especially into the foothills and over the eastern plains for this afternoon. Near Sterling and Broomfield, last recorded wind gusts around 30 miles per hour. Fire danger not as strong as what we experienced here for the metro area today, but the winds will still be gusty, and the winter weather advisory will remain in place through this evening into early tomorrow morning. High winds from the northeastern plains down across southern Colorado with increased fire danger. We'll talk more about the cooler weather and a good chance for seeing rain here across the metro area still to come.
And now to a disturbing trend that may be all too familiar for Coloradans. 8 new fires sparked on Friday alone, burning at least 35 acres of land all over the state in just one day. And it's been a busy few days for firefighters. 3 fires earlier this week prompted evacuations in Boulder County alone. And state fire officials say our fire outlook for the rest of the year isn't too great, but there is some good news here. Denver 7's Christian Lopez joining us now, and Colorado's leaders say they feel more prepared now than ever. Christian.
Yeah, Jessica, they do, and they say that the key is public awareness going into this dry summer. We've already seen dozens of fires break out across the state since the beginning of the year, and this is causing concern for residents across the state as well as fire personnel. And state leaders say that the 2022 wildfire outlook is not looking too good because it's expected to be hot, dry, and windy, and the core fire season could start as early as May. So their strategy is to detect the fires early and attack them aggressively, and they're gearing up with new equipment as well.
For a large air tanker, a second large air tanker on a 4-month contract, 3 Type 1 helicopters, 2 Type 2 helicopters, 2 single-engine air tankers.
We're still trying to outguess Mother Nature, and sometimes that doesn't always work out. Make a list. If you do that kind of work ahead of time, then don't live in fear, just live in preparation.
State officials say that it is important to stay prepared and have an evacuation plan ready just in case. I'm Christian Lopez, Denver 7.
Christian, thank you. And there are ways you too can be prepared. There is an evacuation preparedness clinic happening today at the Elbert County Fairgrounds in Kiowa. This starts at 9 a.m. It is free to the public.
Well, ahead of what's shaping up to be a very active wildfire season, Colorado lawmakers are taking steps to put the state in the best spot to prevent and fight those fires.
And a lot of those efforts are focused on fighting fires from the air. Just last year, the state invested $24 million into buying the state's first Firehawk. But as Denver 7's Megan Lopez explains, it'll be a while before this new tool can be put to use.
We want to encourage you to get prepared for a wildfire.
It's just about to be Fire Awareness Month in Colorado, a time
with Colorado experiencing large fires
when a bunch of people with badges will beg everyone to be responsible through FireWise campaigns while they brace themselves. For years, major wildfires have been an unfortunate fact of life in Colorado, and for years the state has relied on the federal government's 44 air tankers to help. But recently,
The demand for those assets is getting greater and greater, and we found ourselves in situations where we'd be at a large fire needing support from an air tanker or a helicopter, and it would be in one of the other 19 states in the West.
so last year Colorado lawmakers took matters into their own hands,
It was time to rethink the way we do business.
spending $24 million on a Firehawk, a retrofitted Blackhawk that can drop 1,000 gallons of water and transport a dozen firefighters at a time.
It is a true multi-mission firefighting machine. It's rugged. It was built for battle.
But here's the thing, that Firehawk won't be ready for months. In fact, the company retrofitting it in Inglewood hasn't even gotten a hold of the helicopter yet. And then there's a supply chain to contend with.
There's a global supply chain issue. We've done our best to pre-order equipment and have it on hand by the time the aircraft arrive.
They're expecting to finally get that aircraft next month and then get to work.
It takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to do that transition into a Firehawk.
It's not expected to be ready until November or December, so too late for this summer. But that's not the only state effort to fight fires from above. Last year, Colorado signed a contract to have the exclusive use of an air tanker and helicopter for 120 days. This year,
We are announcing, I think, some of our most aggressive efforts as in that plan to date.
along with that contract, plans to expand $20 million in federal funds to extend the contract.
Those funds will go to contracts for additional air tankers and helicopters to quickly and decisively respond to fires before they get out of control.
The state is hoping they won't have to use them, but building up their aviation arsenal anyway and bracing themselves for a hot, dry summer ahead. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
And there is one potential hiccup to that plan. Megan says the contracts for these air tankers and helicopters are very competitive, pitting Colorado against other states also facing the threat of fire. So while that funding is nice, it really only matters if they can secure the contracts.
And bills addressing wildfires are moving forward at the State House. House Bill 1007 would save homeowners money on wildfire mitigation by extending an existing income tax deduction and creating a state income tax credit to reimburse homeowners. House Bill 1379 invests $20 million to protect watersheds and reduce the risk of fire. And House Bill 1111 ensures that homeowners displaced by wildfires will receive fair payouts for lost property.
Earlier this week, we told you about a Parker man accused of selling hundreds of fake COVID-19 vaccination cards. Roger Van Camp is one of 21 people facing federal charges in a nationwide crackdown on COVID fraud in the U.S. Van Camp took blank COVID-19 vaccine cards and forged hundreds of vaccination records. He then sold and distributed the cards to at least a dozen states. He also allegedly sold cards to people who attended the Tokyo Olympics.
It turns out there's more pandemic-related fraud going on, some even calling it one of the largest frauds against the American people.
Billions of dollars in COVID relief aid for the unemployed snatched away by thieves using stolen identities. Patrick Terpstra with our Newsy partners discovered some obstacles, though, blocking authorities from going after much of that fraud and recovering the money.
A surprise came in the mail for Mandy Hernandez.
I received this envelope with this credit card in, and I was like, I didn't apply for a credit card.
On it was cash, unemployment benefits from Ohio. But this retired grandmother in California has never been to Ohio and never been unemployed.
Worked for the post office since 1988.
Someone had apparently stolen her identity to collect benefits. She didn't want to use her full name due to privacy concerns, but agreed to let us use her first and maiden names.
It just feels scary.
We've learned authorities are struggling to investigate a gush of unemployment fraud.
We are talking about probably the biggest fraud ever committed against the American people.
Crooks using Americans' personal information exposed in past data breaches to obtain pandemic unemployment assistance.
It's kind of shocking, but the cost of buying those sort of basic identifiers on the dark web is pennies on the dollar.
Initially, jobless Americans could declare themselves eligible for aid without providing proof. The idea was to speed money to non-traditional workers like a food delivery driver.
While it was generous, also created a open and significantly larger target for people looking to defraud the system.
A federal indictment says these are members of the Wu Gang in Brooklyn, caught on ATM cameras allegedly cashing in pandemic unemployment debit cards. Authorities say they did it by filing thousands of claims using stolen identities. The arrest resulted from an investigation by the U.S. Labor Department's Inspector General. It's an office facing challenges going after billions of dollars worth of fraud. There are too few investigators to sift through a 1,000-fold increase in reports of phony claims, and surprisingly, no access to a database of potential fraud reported by states. The Inspector General has had to rely on time-consuming subpoenas to build cases.
It just slows the process down when you actually have to go other ways to get the information.
The Labor Department tells us it's working on getting state approvals to finally get into the database sometime before summer. It's a hurdle in the already difficult race to get stolen money back.
The bulk of the money is likely attributable to international crime syndicates.
A new estimate puts suspected improper unemployment payments at $163 billion. The Inspector General has been able to recover just $830 million.
And what's our plan to try to recover more of that $163 billion plus?
We believe that it's going to be somewhat difficult to get that back because so many of the fraudsters have already spent it in high dollar value items, whether it be homes, whether it be vehicles.
The grandmother out in California is hanging on to the fraudulent debit card that came in the mail in case law enforcement ever asks for it.
Yeah, it's criminal because I don't know what they're doing with my identity.
Ohio state officials told us they will look into her case, one of an estimated 400,000 reports of suspected unemployment fraud in that state alone. In Washington, I'm Patrick Terpstra reporting.
Can never be too careful with those scams out there. So ThriftCon making its return tomorrow, and we're hearing from one local vendor who you can support while searching the racks for some good finds.
Plus, the Avs' red-hot season might be on pause. Details on their losing streak ahead.